So here is Ruslan and his co-host Zach reacting to the new pope.
All right, it's official. There has been a new pope crowned in Vatican City. It's not my guy, not the guy I was pulling for.
Yeah, that was a pump fake with that guy walking out.
But yeah, kind of. But they got a new pope. There he is. Now the pope is the first American pope. Whoa.
I always think it's funny when I get it. Like, I'm glad Protestants are interested in this. I'm really glad that that is the case. And I don't want I'm not going to be like, don't talk about the Pope ever if you're not a Catholic. I'm not like that kind of guy, but it's just weird for Protestants to be disappointed. Like, oh, it's not the guy I was pulling for, not the guy I wanted, but he seems cool. Like, why are you disappointed? He doesn't, according to you, he doesn't have any authority over you and stuff. So does it really matter? Although he's influential and all that, so I get why they're interested.
So people are saying this is likely Francis 2.0. It's likely Francis 2.0.
So he's just soft and gentle.
He's a bit more left-leaning in some of his stuff. Here's the thing. This is the fascinating thing about the Pope is you got to get in line.
You do got to get in line.
You could have your opinions on him.
There's no not my president with
There's
the Pope.
no not my president with the Pope. You got to get in.
Yes, you do have to get in line. I don't like the way that they're characterized. And now this was like the same day that he got whatever announced. So they don't know much about him at this point. There were all kinds of rumors online that this is Francis 2.0 because he said some nice things about Francis, and Francis and him were pretty close, I guess, while Francis was alive. I mean, Francis was the one who appointed him as a cardinal, I think, just a year or two ago. So I understand why people might think he's Francis 2.0. First of all, Francis wasn't Francis as the media portrayed him. Francis was very conservative on a lot of things. He just wasn't conservative on, he wasn't like American conservative on immigration and climate change. And that's pretty much it. Everything else, abortion, LGTV stuff, whatever else, social issues, he was very conservative. He said abortion is like hiring a hitman. He said no to having, gay men go into seminary, all that stuff. So if Francis 2.0 means more of that, then I think that's great. I would love that. But people had all kinds of concerns. And from what we've seen from some of the quotes coming out of his past, saying things like gender ideology is confusing because it tries to create genders that don't exist. Very based. Saying that tradition and scripture is very clear on women ordination, whether or not it's possible. Very based. I'm not worried about, anything woke with this pope in the least. So all of those concerns are unfounded as far as I'm concerned.
Funds. The theory behind this is that because he's an American, Trump just chopped down a bunch of U.S. aid. I think the Catholic Church gets some degree of U.S. aid for some of their charity and their missions work. And so if you get this guy behind it, you could then potentially bring back some of the fund. This is like the talk on Twitter. And so if you get an American, you can then get some of that U.S. aid money flowing back into some of these charities that they do. And if that goes back in, then they'll be able to continue doing things that is charity, but isn't necessarily privately funded or funded by giving of the church.
That's crazy conspiracy.
That is crazy conspiracy. To be clear, Ruslan is not saying that he agrees with this, and I don't think Zach agrees with this. This is just some talk that's going around online. Oh, well, they got it. This is something even my dad said. He's like, oh yeah, they put in an American, to appease Trump or something. Look, whenever I hear stuff like this, I'm just like, you don't know the history of the church. Because the Catholic Church was, for the first 300 years of its existence, over 300 years of its existence, it was just people were just trying to kill them, like, the entire time. If you became a bishop, it was like almost a certain death sentence because it put a target on your head. And they weren't like, oh, well, let's see how we can appease the Roman emperor so that he can like us. They were like, no, go ahead and kill us. It's great. Fine. Do it. The Catholic Church has never been one to, bow down to worldly powers to get some kind of a temporal gain. That's not a thing. And it's been through much worse than having funding rescinded or something and they still didn't bend the knee at that time. So I don't see why they would bend the knee now. The Catechumen has some very good advice for you guys. Become a YouTube member now. That is very, very good advice. That's probably the best advice I've ever heard. Nova says, why would a 2,000-year-old church give a hoot about the president of a little over 200-year-old country? Yeah. The Catholic Church is going to outlive every single human institution and country on the planet, and it won't even be close. Catechumen with more great advice. Excellent advice. Can you open up a class or a seminar? Because you're just giving really good advice today.
The interesting thing, I don't know how many people find it interesting, but when he was in first grade, a woman across the street that we used to play with the kids, and a woman down the street said he would be the first American Pope. In first grade, they said that.
First grade?
Uh-huh.
Whoa.
A random
He
woman
knew.
told him he would be the Pope?
Well, they were neighbors, we knew them, but yes.
Whoa.
He knew at that age he was going to be a priest.
Whoa.
Now he was, I've been listening to this thing on Hallow where they're going through learning more about the Pope and praying for him. It's really nice. I think it's like a 7-day thing. They're on day 4 now, but you can still jump in. And they were saying that from a very young age, he knew he wanted to be a priest. He went from middle school. He didn't skip high school, but he went to like a seminary high school or something like that. I don't remember exactly the name of it, but catechumen with more great advice. You definitely don't want to be a heretic. Thank you, catechumen. But yeah, so he knew from a very young age. So it could be that this lady just saw that he was very devout, and she was like, "Oh, how cute! Maybe you'll be the first American Pope." Or it could be that she knew something that we don't know. She had some prophetic power. Who knows? Who knows? But I think it's always really wholesome to hear about people who are figures in the church today who just knew from a young age, like first grade, they were like, "I want to be a priest," and they were like, I think, yeah. Pope Leo XIV, when he was in elementary school, he would do mock masses with his friends. And they would have like a piece of bread or something that he would, pretend to consecrate. That's just so cute. And I just wish that I was like that when I was a kid. I was such an idiot when I was a kid, and I was like, man, if I was like this, if this was my mentality as a kid, my life would have been so much more smooth. I think lots of old ladies have predicted that lots of young boys will be Pope. So that isn't that spectacular to me. I do love Pope Leo XIV, though. He's awesome. I get that. Yeah. I mean, it could just be like, oh, that's a cute story. How is your wife enjoying being Catholic so far? She is more Catholic than me. I keep telling her that. She's great. She's loving it. She keeps reminding me every day, like, did you read the daily readings today? And I'm like, I haven't. And she's the one that's telling me. She's like, you got to read the daily readings today. It's really good. And then she'll be like, because we're reading through the Gospel of John, and she'll be like, hey, we got to read the Bible. Let's go. Like, turn off this TV show. I'm like, who are you? And then she reminds me every night that we got to pray the rosary. She's super, super devout. And then even when I'm not home and she's going out the door, like to go somewhere, she'll, do the holy water, bless herself with the holy water on the way out. It's just like I came back one day from wherever I was, and I noticed that the holy water font was filled up. And I was like, did you fill up the holy water? And she was like, yeah, I had to, so I could bless myself before I go out, because you never know. I was like, who are you? This is crazy. Thank God for our God-fearing wives. I know. Excellent. I'm like, man, and my priest told me this before I got, or during my first confession. He was like, how's your wife doing with everything? I was like, yeah, I've talked to her about it. She's okay with it, but she doesn't really seem like she's interested in becoming Catholic. And he said, I've seen couples before where one person comes in to the church and the other is like, whatever, maybe I'll come in just because you are. And then it flips, and the other spouse is now more devout than the first spouse was. And I was like, okay, that's cute. Maybe that happens sometimes, but that's not going to happen to me. And it seems like my wife is more devout. She's a better Catholic than me.